Okay, hi. Thanks for coming for our fourth Filmcamp.KK. So even though today is not many people, but I think we can pay more attention to our special guest and also give him some response and put your thought, prepare yourself what to ask later, because this is really a rare opportunity for us to have someone from all the way from Singapore to come here and share with us. It's 2 hours flight. It's considered far. Okay, so give a hand to our special guest, Edwina.
Okay, how many of you here have heard about crowdfunding before? Have you heard about Kickstarter, crowdfunding, or anything like that? Okay, so if you haven't, it's fine. I'll tell you a little bit more about it and what we do. Okay, so but before I continue, I just want to show you this quick video.
So IRL Shooter presents Patient Zero.
An RLM FPS RPG.
It's a marathon of horror.
Real life, multiplayer, first person shooter, role playing game. Bitches.
Film, theatre, video game experience.
It never ever stops. You can't pause, you can't tap out, you can't go for a drink.
Bringing the computer game experience into real life.
What IRL Shooter will give you is a good story, a killer story, something that is not just about shooting things.
You may be aware of the shopping mall and manor house shooting zombie games in the UK.
So the technology we're using is laser tag. It's RF. This is just the prototype that we've got so far. They're going to be much better.
We're taking that to the next level.
Because this is a computer game in real life, there is a scoring system. And using these guns, it allows us to have headshot, leg shot, body shot, friendly fire, misses, how many times you had to reload.
This is reality. This isn't a virtual reality experience. This is something that is coming after you. These are actors, these are real people. There's no bad algorithm AI.
We're using some of the best film industry professionals to help with the lighting design,
Real life,
set design,
multiplayer,
sound design,
first person shooter,
makeup,
role playing game.
They move slow, they move fast, they crawl, they hide, they jump out, they all moan.
all the character development that's going into the actual game is film industry standard.
We're on Pozible to get some seed money to make these a hell of a lot better.
The whole world that you'll experience inside the building that we control is designed to terrify you and to entertain you, but you have to play and play well to succeed and to get out alive.
IRL Shooter presents Patient Zero. You will shit yourself.
IRL Shooter is a real-life multiplayer first-person shooter role-playing game.
If you're a little crybaby bitch, it could be too much for you. Oh, we can use that, trust me. Yeah.
Essentially what happened was a group of filmmakers were working on a horror movie, and then they had some of the stuff lying around, and they said, hey, let's do something crazy. And they wanted $10,000 to make those guns look more like guns, and they ended up with $243,000. And they ended up having to stage the production many, many times. So it was like an immersive production that people could go to, and people really liked it and gave them the money to make it happen. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, even if you don't end up raising this kind of money, this is actually quite rare, but you can actually still use this as a platform to take an idea that you have a passion project that you have in mind on top of the other work that they're already doing, so that you can just get started on it right away. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how it works. Okay, so who is Pozible? Pozible is from Melbourne originally. We've been in Melbourne for about 3 years. Now we're expanding to Asia through Singapore and Malaysia, which is why I'm standing here talking to all of you. If you look at this front page, it changes every day, but essentially what happens is that if you have an idea, you can take the idea, whatever it is. It could be a movie you want to make, it could be a short film, it could be an album, and not just that, it could even be a food business that you want to set up, a comic you want to write, whatever it is, you can set up a project. Last week we had a guy who said, I want to crowdfund my cup of coffee, and he ended up with enough to buy several cups. So it's all about having an idea and then convincing people to help you make it happen, and it really, really can be anything. So if you look here, we've got we've got albums, but it actually changes every day. We've got a ton of musicians, we've got a ton of filmmakers, we've got some community projects, we've got people who said we want to set up a charity, we've got people who are saying that we want to make a book that would teach kids in the native language of the refugees in Australia and stuff like that. So, thanks for coming. So I encourage you to check it out and sign up. You can log in with your Facebook account, but before you do that, I will before you do that, I'll just take you very through the process of what makes a good campaign and how it all works. So the first thing to start with is a target. Like once you have an idea, we need a target. So it's simply put, how much money do you need to complete this project well, or maybe a little bit more. So if you say it's $25,000 or 20,000 ringgit or 5,000 ringgit or even 500 ringgit, whatever it is, decide on that amount, because we are an all or nothing platform, which means that if you said you needed 10,000 ringgit and you ended up with 9,900 the day of your project deadline is up, you don't get anything, nobody gets charged for anything at all. So it's very important to set a realistic target that will be just enough for you to start a project that you want to do. So if you look here, this is one part of our interface. It shows you the pie chart of how much more you've got to go, how many days you've got left, how many people have supported you. So a $25,000 project is actually one of our higher ranking projects. Most projects are very much lower, like a couple of thousand. Very rarely do you get the one that hits $250,000 like the one that you saw just now, but it's a good start. And then there's something called a pledge. So, don't think about it as a donation. The internet isn't going to give you a donation to make a project happen. It's a pledge. They're buying into something. It could be a product, it could be an idea, it could be if you're making a film, maybe they want a DVD. It could be if you want to make an album, maybe they want an early access to the album, the digital download. It doesn't even have to be a physical product. It could be access to something that they can't get elsewhere. It could be that one of the bands that was featured on the front page, they're one of the most popular bands in Australia, and instead of saying let's do an album the regular way through a record label, they said let's crowdfund the entire thing. People on Pozible gave them 68,000 Australian dollars, and one of the success stories is that they were able to use the reward system to incentivize people to help give them more because they offered more in return. So it wasn't just 99 cents gets you a digital download, $9.99 gives you a physical album. It was also $8,000 gives you I will come to your house and cook you a barbecue anywhere in Australia, and I will sing you a song. And for a lot of fans, that was, for fans with money, that was access that money cannot even buy in a store, which is one of the key reasons why they succeeded so much. For a lot less money, the guitarist would teach you how to play guitar for like an hour. So, or they would let you be part of the process of making that album where you could go look at the production happening. So fans really bought into that. It was products, goods, services, as well as access to stuff that they can't get anywhere else in the store. So if you look here, it says $1 plus gives you a single from the new album as an MP3, and you will get it the day before it gets released. So this is a good example of why people would buy into crowdfunding. It's that they know the album is going to be available on that day, but they'll give you money in advance because they want early access, or they love you and they want to support you. So there are many different ways to think about it. This is us. There are some stats about us. In the last 3 years, we have successfully raised more than 16 million Australian dollars for 5,000 plus projects. 104 countries have participated in that, even though for a very long time the only way you could get a project onto our site was if you lived in Australia and had Australian ID and bank details, but still we managed to do all of this, and contributions have come from more than 104 countries. We are currently the largest crowdfunding site outside of the US. So we've got Kickstarter in the first place, and we've got something else called Indiegogo. These two are American companies. They transact largely in US dollars. You will lose out on the conversion rates and things like that. And in the first place, you can't even set up a project on Kickstarter to begin with. So when we decided to look at Asia, we said, there's a lot of natural relationships between this part of the world and our part of the world, because there's so many Malaysians living in Australia. There's so many projects, creative projects that could benefit from someone somewhere else financing it or supporting it in some way. Think of all the times you've tried to make an album or a short film and been like, hey, actually this person, this cousin or this friend of mine who lives in Melbourne might be interested, but doing that whole send me money through Maybank thing maybe isn't going to work out because it's too mafan. But so this builds a platform and brings it together, and now we are in Melbourne, Sydney, San Francisco, Europe is coming up, and now Singapore and Malaysia as well. We're really, really focused on Malaysia. We want to help Malaysian project creators get their projects funded, because we know that traditionally it's been difficult for Malaysian project creators to get access to funding. So we think that this is going to be a good opportunity for them to get funds from somewhere else, and also get a bit of publicity out of it. But if you look at the second stat, 60%, this is a number that we're very, very proud of. This is a number that shows our success in building relationships with communities like this one, because in every single day, in every city, somewhere in Australia or Asia, somewhere in the world, there's someone like me doing a presentation like this, talking to organizers, talking to institutions, and saying that if you want to do a project, we will tell you exactly how to do it to succeed. So we actually have the highest success rate. So by success, I mean hitting your target. Out of all the top 3 crowdfunding platforms in the world. The first one is at about 40%. The second platform is at something like 10%. We're at 60% and above. And in certain categories, especially in the creative categories, we're at 60, 65, 71% success rates, because we work very closely with communities specifically to get their projects up and running, and we tell them exactly what they have to do. So we understand that crowdfunding is quite new in the world. It's only been less than 4 years old. And even then, most people who have had an experience in crowdfunding have experienced it in terms of giving money to a project. They've supported something, they've given a buck somewhere. But very few people know exactly what they have to do to make a project succeed, whereas we have done more than 5,000. We've sat through all of that. We've sort of distilled some of the tips and tricks, and whatever information that's not covered here, you can go on our website. If you scroll down to the footer, you'll see that there's something called a handbook, and it shows you like very clear information, what you need, what should be in your video, what your reward system should be like. You can watch a video that shows you how all this works. You can even email the team and say, I've got this idea, tell me what to do next. So we believe a lot in investing in the community. I'll just show you very quickly what works, and What doesn't? Okay, first you start with a good idea. Sometimes when you talk about crowdfunding, you end up with people saying funny things like, "Oh, you mean I can crowdfund and I can get the internet to pay for me to travel around the world?" It's not really how it works, because that's not an idea. But what would be an idea is if you said, "I want to travel around the world to do something." So it could be anything. It could be you want to do a travel log. You want to. We had a bunch of guys say they want to travel to LA from somewhere in rural Australia to see if they could make a documentary about meeting Miley Cyrus, and they wanted to see if they could meet her. So I don't think they actually met the target, but that in itself is a form of how you can put an idea element into something broader by having a very clear outcome. It has to be a project. It has to have a start, it has to have a finish. It's not just a give me money to do whatever I want to do. So as long as enough people believe in that idea and you convince them, that can work. So it should be very personal, it should be very transparent. And the best way to do that is to put that in a video. Unless you're making a film, I don't think it's absolutely necessary to have super high production quality in your trailer. It doesn't have to be the one like what you saw. It can be just you sitting in a room talking at a camera about who you are, what you want to do, what you want to achieve, how much money you want to get out of it, and what you do with that money. As long as people can hear you and they are clear about what your project is, who you are, then that's better than having no video at all. But most of the time the video helps your personality shine through. It makes people feel like they can trust you. And you know, there's so much stuff to read online, you just scroll through if there's too much text anyway. So for a lot of people that is the first shot, maybe even the last one. If you don't have social media presence, I suggest starting a one right away. It could just be your own personal Facebook account, right? But start using it a little bit more, and because 45% of traffic to most campaigns come through Twitter and through Facebook. Because of the sharing nature of what you're trying to do, you are going to start a project and then you're going to be posting it and posting and posting it, and then you're going to be, you know, bothering your friends and family to give you, to support you in some way. So the social element is pretty important, but using it with quality over quantity in mind is probably quite important. You don't want to just be spamming, you want to be engaged in some conversation. So if you were making, say, for example, we've got a project now from Singapore that's probably going to be the first Asian project to reach its goal. They are craftspeople, they make textiles. So for those guys, they don't need to repeatedly say, give me money, but they can say to the right people at the right time, which is the crafting community around the world, through social media, and engage them. And that itself is better than just repeatedly reposting. So think about things like that. When we say an open project and with rewards, it just means being very transparent. So I've seen some projects come through the pipeline where someone is clearly just trying to make a quick buck, right? When you read it, you get a feeling, you know that it's very vague, they don't really tell you exactly what they're trying to do, and therefore you don't really trust them. So you want to avoid coming across that way. So even if you're just not, you know, very good at words or at putting things together, maybe ask someone, ask our team, we could help you work out the details of exactly what you're trying to convey so that it comes across as being very transparent and open. And think about the reward system. So I think the rewards part is something that people struggle a little bit with because we haven't had the same culture of crowdfunding as elsewhere yet. So it's the idea that you should think about what various amounts of money can, how you reward various amounts of contribution. So it doesn't have to be an object, but it can be. It doesn't have to be something you physically ship. It could even be, in a case of a lot of community or charity projects, $5, $10 gives you a virtual hug. People will select it anyway because that's the amount that they were prepared to give. But as far as you can, think about what you can do to encourage people to give you more than they normally would. So we had a project which had a fairly boring premise, which is that it was a researcher who was studying maggots. And when we saw that project, we're like, what rewards is she going to offer, right? Like, how could that possibly be interesting? But she came up with a really innovative way. She said, for this amount of money, I will give you a piece of maggot art. So for $150, she took these maggots in her lab and she put them in paint, and then they crawled around canvas, and she shipped it to you. And it wasn't just that, it was a whole range of other things as well. It was different sizes of maggot art, it was a plush toy, it was and as a result, she actually managed to raise the amount she wanted, which was $9,946. Actually, she got a little bit more, so that she could carry out more research. And as a consequence, she also got invited to many academic conferences around the world for her interesting approach to her field of study. So I'm fairly sure that I don't think $10,000 worth of people really cared a lot about maggots, but it's just an example of how a well-structured reward system can really make the difference in your campaign. So if you ever have any questions about that part, you can always email our team, and we can just work with you on what you have and what you can do and suggest something that would work. So the last part is just a Pozible workshop, which is a little bit like this. So this week I've done a talk in every city, every day. And so that's what we do. It's just that we are here to build a relationship, to show you that we're not just a website, we're not just this company somewhere far away. You can talk directly to us. I'll give you some examples. This thing, as you can see, is a coffee cup. It's called the upper cup. If you go to Starbucks or one of those places, you probably see that they've got different kinds of coffee cups, and every coffee place has its own interpretation of what a coffee cup should be. There was a coffee lover who believed that all of that was not good enough for him, so he decided to make his own, and he designed it, and he wanted to manufacture them. If you think about that, even 5 years ago, without crowdfunding, how would you do that? You would design it, you would write a business plan, and then you would go to a bank or to an investor, and then you would take a loan or take an investment, give away equity or put up some collateral somewhere, and then have a small amount of money in order to start a production run, and then think about marketing later on. But where this comes in for projects like this, crowdfunding is really perfect because he was able to raise $66,000 in just under 60 days. In a system which was a bit like a pre-sale. So he said that if you gave me, $50, you would get the first version of this cup. If you gave me X amount of money, you would get a set. And people who love coffee actually invest is not the right word, but actually believed in him and made this happen. So with this amount, he was able to start the production run and also get the first 400 customers right away. All because he put up a video and showed a little bit about what he planned to do. So in terms of what it was like before and this, I think this is a fairly somewhat better option because he didn't have to give away any equity. He's not giving away any royalties on anything. And in fact, when he finished the crowdfunding campaign, he can even use the page that he already built, and he can continue selling the cups through our website, through that same page. So for him, it also solved the e-commerce element as well. This is something that I'm very excited about. I think crowdfunding has a lot of versatility. We recently started a project with various universities in Australia called academic crowdfunding. So we managed to help some researchers raise significant sums of money to do specific academic things. This guy was just sitting at home having dinner, and his son told him that, hey, I'm really sad that these mammals in Papua New Guinea are going to be extinct very soon. And well, his father was one of the foremost researchers in that field, so he said, let me go and do something about it. So that's pretty cool because almost 300 people supported him. He was able to go very, very quickly. He said, I need $20,000. I need to go to Papua New Guinea twice. I need to buy this set of equipment. And there was a good experiment because previously he might have had to spend 6 months writing a paper, applying for a grant that he knew we don't get. This one I've already told you about, which is still our highest grossing project ever. Oh, okay. Hey, it's a bit loud now. Yeah, so this is still our highest grossing project ever, 243,000. They recently started a new project to start IRL shooter somewhere else in Sydney, and in just one day they got $63,000. The following slides may be more relevant for some of you. I'll take you through some of the film projects that we've done. This is a project that is a Singapore-Australian collaboration about a soldier that was a prisoner of war in Singapore during World War II. They raised $23,000. You might be confused about how you can make a feature film for $23,000, but what a lot of people are doing now is that they're saying, I am getting financing somewhere else the regular way, but I can also get a part of it from my audience through crowdfunding, which is exactly what happens in projects like this, where they see it more as a marketing tool, as a pre-sales tool, as a way of connecting to the fans, to see what they want, to see if this project is even going to sell any tickets in the first place. So clearly this one did, because at least 180 people said, I like this idea enough to put down serious money into it. This one is really cool because if you've been to film school before, I'm sure you know that it's pretty hard putting money together for some of your student projects, and most of the time you end up just making do with what you have. Some students from RMIT in Melbourne said, I want to make this really incredible historical documentary, and that's exactly what they did, and they raised $15,000 to do that. Because in Australia we have gotten to a point where everyone, including the least tech-savvy people, are so familiar with crowdfunding that they know that, hey, if I need something for my creative project, I can just put it on Pozible, and if it's good enough, it'll happen. So that's the culture that we're trying to build here, that you can make things happen even if you don't have access to traditional funds. This one was a documentary about depression in rural Western Australia. They raised a lot more because although they asked for 10, the Western Australian government created a project with us where for a certain period of time, every film that was on Pozible that was from Western Australia would automatically get $3 for every $1 raised if they were successful. So it's this type of model that we think going forward is going to help a lot of creatives. I know not every government body in the world is going to be doing things like that, but at least it sets a precedent that you can do this. This was a bunch of my friends who drove tuk-tuk around India for 1 month. And they wanted to create a photo book and a bunch of other things of the experience, and they raised 21,000 Singapore dollars. But beyond that, it's crowdfunding is great because it gives you full ownership. Like I said, if you're making the film, or even if you're the guy making the coffee cup, you're not ever at any point giving away any of your equity or royalties or your intellectual property. The only thing we take, and this is a question that some people ask us, is like, how do we make money? We only take 5% of the total raised, only if you are successful. So if you didn't cross your target, then there's no fees whatsoever. But if you were successful while we're transacting that amount to you, we also take 5%. But because we're at this phase where we are new and we're trying to build relationships and encourage projects, I'm happy to say that for now, for any one of you who are here, as well as your friends that you recommend, we would give a reduced rate of 4%. Just make sure you tell us when you're creating a project. I think more importantly, it's just that there's a lot of unlimited potential. And it comes from the fact that we're always innovating and we are always coming up with new ways of thinking about crowdfunding. So whatever you've seen just now is what the world knows of about crowdfunding, is that I need a fixed sum of money and this is what you get in return. But here at Pozible, we are always thinking about crowdfunding different ways. So for example, we have rolled out a new feature called monthly subscription crowdfunding. So if you were someone who is roasting coffee or making a magazine or something, one of those things, you can even set up a project right now that says, give me $10 a month for the next 12 months. And that opens up a whole new avenue of crowdfunding opportunities for other types of project creators who may not need a bulk sum right away, but who need a consistent source of revenue. We have something called private crowdfunding, which is good for people like, say, colleagues in a small company who want to organize a retreat together. They want to pool money together, they want to go on a holiday, or they want to do a project together. They don't want this to go public, they don't want it to go on a website, so we have private crowdfunding. That's quite cool. Sometimes people have used it to buy surprises for their friends, like someone lost a laptop and all the friends would chip in to make it happen. So for Asia, it's a very new funding model because very often if you didn't have the right connections or the right access, you might not get funding very easily. So this is a way to let people with a good idea put it out there to test, to see if they can make something out of it, out of something that they're passionate about. It's also a new e-commerce frontier because, as I said, there's something called a Pozible shop, which means that if you're selling a physical product, you can continue using the page that you set up to sell that product with no monthly or transactional fees. So just a couple of facts. A lot of people think about crowdfunding as a donation. They say, can you donate some money to me? But it's not a donation because most of the time you're not a charity. It is a pledge, it is a contribution, but it's not a donation. So what this also means is that you should have a very clear start and finish in your project. It can't just be an open-ended, I'm saving dogs in the streets, which is actually what some of my friends are doing. Give me money, because full stop. But if it was, I'm saving dogs on the streets and I need $5,000 to sterilize and rehome 100 dogs, for example, then that would be a very clearly defined project that is easy to understand. So no matter what field you're in, whether it's a F&B thing or a movie or an album, just have a very clear project start and end. It doesn't even have to be a date specifically, it can be just a project outline. The front page, a lot of people would write us emails and say, hey, if only you could get us onto the front page, we can get more contributions, but that's not really true. What's true is that if you have a very well-run campaign, if you have a campaign that's very well put together, where the reward system is very clear, where your project outcomes are clear as well, and all of that stuff, and you have a decent video, you're much more likely to succeed than even being on a front page. So don't spend too much time trying to get on it by having like pretty graphics and all that stuff. It's not important. Focus all of your time on putting a project together that is very easy to understand. There's something we call the 30% line, which is that try to get to 30% of your target as early as possible. So if your goal was $9,000, right out of the gate, from the moment you launch, go big on marketing, go big on talking to people, tell everyone you meet, try to get to $3,000 as soon as possible. And why is that? It's because if you've ever been to one of any crowdfunding site, if you see that, hey, there's this project, there's 2 days left, and they've only raised 20% of the total. You know that they're not going to make it, and you're probably thinking, what's wrong with this project? No one was convinced by it, and you're not even going to look at it, right? So the opposite is true, which is that if you do all those things and you reach 30% as soon as possible, that's the point at which people outside of your social network, outside of your personal networks, are going to start to take notice and say, hey, this looks interesting, I should check it out. So it's very important to try to get there to 30% and beyond as soon as possible, if possible in the first couple of days. There's something called the U-curve as well. When this happens, don't worry. This happens to every project, even the ones that raise lots and lots of money. It's very simply that when you start a project, you gain a lot of momentum. You might get emails every couple of minutes saying, oh, someone has supported your project, which is great, and then you're really, really happy. And then a couple of days later, if your project is 45 days, maybe around the second week and last part of it, people are going to drop off. You may not get anything at all, or you might get one, or you might get one every couple of days. It's the bottoming out of the U-curve because every project has this trend. It's just quite simply that people tend to lose interest in the middle. So don't worry too much about it. When that happens, just spend some time continuously just talking anyway, maybe in a reduced fashion, but don't worry, it's fine, it's perfectly normal. But towards the end, it will pick up. So whether or not you make it to your goal is going to make the difference in the last part. So if you can try and make the pickup as large as possible, that would be great. For a lot of projects, they don't know if they're going to succeed until the last 2 to 3 days. So just keep this in mind. It's nothing to worry about. As mentioned, about 45% of our traffic comes from Facebook and Twitter. Usually it's Facebook more and Twitter less because of the social and personal effect of most of these projects. It's your friends trying to support you. But if it's something very, very specialized, like the mammal project we saw earlier, it would be the opposite, because on Twitter there would be more domain experts in that space sharing that information. So why Pozible? We are a global platform now focused on Asia, starting with Malaysia. So what this means in practical terms is that we are the first global platform that you can use as a Malaysian or as a Malaysia-based project creator. You can set up right away. You can accept projects in Malaysian ringgit, and this is fairly important for some people. And also that you have a local, regional point of contact, which is me and some people on my team, who are here to help you succeed. So whatever ideas you have, no matter how small it is or how far down the pipeline it is, we're happy to hear about your project and also to give our feedback on how you can make it happen. So I think this part is very important. It makes very often the difference between a project succeeding and a project not. Before joining Pozible, I had done a couple of crowdfunding campaigns myself through our sites, and my experience had just been that I just set up something, I wrote a bunch of text, and then it failed or it didn't fail, and then I didn't know what happened at all. Or I didn't get any support or any information that I needed, or if I did, it came too late. So we're here to do the opposite. So for the foreseeable future, projects within this group and even within your own networks, we'll give a 20% discount, which is 4% instead of 5% for the fee. And we would also give you very personalized one-on-one support. So I'll share my email address. Later on, you can, if you're interested, you can come up here and write into the spreadsheet where you can leave your name, your contact details, and any ideas you might have, and we'll just stay in touch. And we're also happy to go a little further as well. So I was talking to some KL artists the other day, and they said, what more can you do for us beyond all of this stuff? And we were like, if you ever came to Australia for a show, a cultural exchange, or to take part in something, come work out of our office. We just really believe in giving back to the community and in connecting with them. So we would support your projects as far as we can. We also have the most number of payment options. It shouldn't be a big deal, but if anyone's interested in Bitcoins, you can actually support projects using Bitcoins. And as mentioned already, we have the highest success rate out of all the top 3 global platforms. Some people have said, what's the difference between using you guys and some local crowdfunding website that has been set up? I think the answer to that is that in every single market that we go to, whether it's Singapore, Malaysia, or even China or Hong Kong later on, we see clones of crowdfunding platforms. Someone somewhere has built a piece of software that looks and does exactly what ours does. And that's fine. If that works for you, that's fine. But for us, it's about the fact that we have presence, that we are the largest site outside of the US and 3rd largest in the world, that we can offer a certain amount of scale and exposure that some of these other sites can't. And even compared to our bigger competitors, if you look at these numbers, these are pretty staggering, because in performing arts alone, our success rate is at about 71%. So that's like every theater production and all that stuff. 7 out of 10 of them are very likely to succeed, and that's because of events like this and groups like various arts groups and institutions that we partner with, that we work closely with them to help them succeed. So this is the office in Melbourne. There's a hammock somewhere in the picture. If you start a project on Pozible, when you click create, it's a very, very simple process. We also have one of the easiest to use interfaces out there. You can start a project and right away it'll say what currency do you want it to be in. So if you pick ringgit, put in an amount, there's a drop-down box that says, did you go to a workshop? So if you did, then you'll find my name, which is Adriana, in there, and immediately I will get an email that says that this person has said that they want you to be the point of contact, and I will be keeping track of all the projects that you're putting up and making sure that everything is on track and that you get the help that you need. So that's what we're really excited about, which is about meeting creative communities around Malaysia and making things happen. Later on, when we're more established, we'll probably roll out a similar thing, which is what we call ambassadors. So in every industry, we have about 20 different categories. There's like food, there's journalism, craft, there's comics. In every industry, we have an ambassador or several, who is usually someone who has started using, who used Pozible successfully, really loves the idea of crowdfunding and just loves helping people, and we work with them to offer more value to the community at large and to just spread the word that you're not doing this alone. It's about buying into a community that wants you to succeed. So yeah, so as I also said, we also have some very innovative ways of thinking about crowdfunding. Subscription is something that we rolled out just a month ago, the monthly thing. Private is something we've had for some time. No other crowdfunding platform has it at the moment. And the last one is called self-hosted, which just means that if you were an institution or blogger or someone with your own presence, you can roll your own crowdfunding without sending people to Pozible. So this is a different use case, but think about all the arts organizations that could do their own thing, where the people who support them don't even have to sign up on a website. So if you have any questions at all, just feel free to ask me anything. I'm here for a while. And you can also get my email contact, or you can come up here later and fill in your contact details and we can stay in touch. Okay, that's about it. All right. Yep.
Let's say I need 1K for my short film. Then I got enough pledge. I succeed. But I failed to do the video. Failed to do the short film out.
Okay, when you set up a project, you actually have to submit your ID for verification with an address. There is a short approval process, but the reason we do this is so that in situations like that, we know what to do. Because to us, it's no different from setting up a shop and saying that I'm going to bring in the latest PlayStation. Just give me 2,000 ringgit first. But at some point in the future, I'll give it to you, but you don't give it to someone. So to us, it's very similar. And I don't know specifically about Malaysian legislation. I guess we'll check. But in most other parts of the world, that if you don't deliver on that, it's equivalent in a way. So you have to fulfill what you said you will fulfill, and if you cannot, then we would recommend that you get in touch with your supporters and say, this is what happened. Most of the time, they are very understanding. So even if you said, I'm going to deliver this thing by this date, right? If there's a slight delay, just be very open and very communicative always, and say that this is where we're at in the process, this is what the holdup is, this is the obstacle that you ran into, and this is the situation. So you can either get a refund, or you can wait a little bit more. And most of the time I find they actually say, it's okay, just keep me posted, I will wait for this. So, yeah. In fact, some of the bigger projects that raised millions of dollars, like tech stuff, on Kickstarter, some of them were delayed by more than a year, which people complain about, but they understand that a lot of times it's a small team struggling to meet demand. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Charity project.
Charity projects?
Let's say there's an organization needs some fund to do some upgrades on Windows, Windows, things like that. So how do I raise the fund? How do I reward them in terms of charity? Because it's not for them themselves.
Yeah.
How do you reward them in charity?
That's a good point. I'll show you an example. This building is actually where the Pozible office in Melbourne is. We're on the third floor. On the ground floor, there's a cafe that is a not-for-profit cafe that uses the space to train refugees and immigrants in F&B skills. So when they wanted to expand their operations, they ran a campaign. So actually, we have free coffee for the rest of our lives. But they offered things like, for the first, okay. So I guess in this case, they were still offering something, which is coffee. But there are other community projects out there that have done interesting things, there's a Somali woman who wanted to do books for her community, and she ran a campaign, and most of the rewards were just things like, I will give you a virtual hug or a shout out on Facebook, and I will, yeah. And it was, a lot of people opted for it. Maybe I'll show you a better example. Okay, so this one is a community project. Someone wanted to go to India to do a project on waste management. It was a very simple thing. So it says for $10 you'll be invited to a presentation about the trip when we return. For $40, she will send you a postcard from India. For $100, she'll make you a jar of homemade pickles. And that was it. So I think for charities like orphanages, the potential and things like that is that you can do things like, say, some of the kids will write you a postcard and send it to you. That's one of the rewards you can think about offering. And it will be something that is not really directly packed to a value. So even if you put it at $50, some people are going to be like, oh, that's cool, because of the nature of that type of project. So previously I had raised about $10,000 to start a scholarship fund for girls in India to go to private schools. So it was very simple. It was just that $150 lets you sponsor one girl for a year. We will keep you posted about her progress. $49 sponsors English lessons, and we didn't do anything to follow up on that because it was just there was nothing to send, but people were happy to support it anyway. Anybody else? What about you guys? Yep.
apply or submit for related projects?
Yeah.
So it could be like part one first.
Yeah, actually a lot of projects do that. They break it up into smaller chunks, and that's better because you are clearer about what you're trying to achieve and how much it's going to be. So I would actually highly recommend it if it's a fairly ambitious project. Okay.
Just now you mentioned
Yeah.
some recruitment process.
Yep.
How long does it take?
24 to 48 hours, but usually just a couple of hours. Yeah. We're just checking on things like, I mean, we're fairly lax on our terms and conditions, but it's just things like, pornography clearly is something that we check for. The other thing that we absolutely don't allow is offering a financial reward in return for supporting the project. So if there's an element of someone saying, give me $10 and it'll become $100, we will not approve that project because that's not... let's just not go into that. There's also the other part, which is for charities, if they wanted to offer a tax deductible, there are certain guidelines that they should follow, certain regulations in certain countries. It changes from country to country. We try to follow those laws. If there was stuff like alcohol involved, like if we had a bunch of guys set up a completely new gin company from crowdfunding. And it was really cool because it is actually a really, really good gin. It's called 4 Pillars Gin. If you ever travel to Australia, or if anyone flying through, they have it at duty free. It's a very small batch artisan gin. But for guys like that, in the approval process, we check to see if they have a license to give gin as a reward because it's selling alcohol and it's alcohol licensing. Yeah. But it's a very short process. Yeah.
What's your success rate, failure rate for delivery of after it's been successfully
I'd say almost 100%. Yeah.
projects do you have right now?
We've had more than 5,000 projects. We've never had an instance of someone saying, I couldn't do this. I mean, if there was, they probably worked out something internally to say that I will refund you or something, but even that's quite rare. I think most of the time it's, some people are concerned about fraud and stuff, which is a valid concern, but if you think about it, when you're crowdfunding, most of the time the people who have supported you are your friends and your relatives and someone in your personal network. So going to the extent of taking that money and not doing it with intent to not do it is probably not a very good idea. Yeah. Yeah.
How many days are you given to raise funds?
It's up to you to define the duration. So it can be anything from a day to 60 days or more, but we highly recommend a period of between 40 and 60 days. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Yep.
If you create something, let's say it's like, for example, okay,
Mm.
like a charity, right?
Mhm.
And then it's also a film,
Mhm.
something like that. So would it be categorized under film or charity or under both?
Whichever suits it more. So if the product was a film, I would probably put it as a film. But if it had a charitable intent, then
Like if it has elements of both in it, lah. Like let's say you're gonna do a charity kind of thing, but
Yeah.
also film about it kind of thing.
okay. So is it a film with a charitable purpose or
More like a charity. Let's say a charitable thing that you do, but you also cover it as a film or as a documentary.
I mean, in that particular instance, I'd probably put it as a film because it still comes in the form of a film. But I guess just pick the category that makes more sense, that maybe more people are looking at. I think film is more
So
popular.
At the end of the day, like for something like that, right? Does Pozible decide the category or does the user decide?
The user decides, but if it's obviously miscategorized, then we'll have to think about what that is. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I have a question. Do you think people in KK would actually be interested in using something like this?
I think yes, actually, we have been in this kind of situation for quite long. Means not much support, especially for art industry, creative industry, theater, dance, drama,
Yeah.
all sorts, all kinds of painters.
Yeah.
We don't have a really good platform. So
Yeah.
now seems like possible. You guys don't provide a good platform for us to try.
Yeah, maybe a good place to start would be to start on a small project, something small, something quite doable. For example, in Singapore, I'm encouraging a lot more projects like, art students who want to do a community art therapy weekend. They just need $1,000 for materials. So I'd rather have more of those little projects than the big ones that say, I want $50,000. Yeah. I mean, we like that too, but it's just the more people start to see that they can use it in a practical way and that it's attainable, the better it is. Yeah.
So if you post our project out there, we also can get the fund from Australia.
Yeah. Yeah, so in a sense, it opens up arts projects, especially from this part of the world, to a more regional audience. And I think it will find some success abroad because, there's so many people in Australia with a Malaysian connection in some way. Yeah. Hey.
Besides for asking fund, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible to ask for support or anything through the principals and through the audience?
Like, could you give me an example?
Maybe you are making a product, and then maybe you need some technical support or some money support, or maybe more than that, you need a factory to build everything. Yeah.
Our platform isn't set up for that, but by doing that, if you get some traction, you might get, supporters who may or may not contribute, but who can get in touch with you if you have an interesting project. So I think it opens up to collaboration as well. Yeah, but the platform itself doesn't do that automatically.
So it's actually you just can put it as a question, and then so just hope for something.
Yeah, you can put it that you're looking for a collaborator to do something. If it was something in the arts, we would see if there's any connection that was useful we could make.
It's something
yeah.
like dance, right?
Mm.
So maybe principals can something like you're asking for world travel, and then maybe got some place, some certain location or country, they're actually providing their location for our dancers or things, or any guests fly over and then give some.
Well, then you can start a project that says, send us to this place to do that. Yeah.
They're asking about creativity problems, right?
Mm.
Because if your idea is totally new, and then it's maybe they are not something created in the world yet, then you might be just promising it onto the festivals and through the internet. Then maybe with you a threat of like people is copying you or actually stealing your ideas and things else.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing the platform itself can do about that. But if you look at our collection page, are you involved in dance? Or? Okay. Yeah, so you see these are all our partners and some of the organizations that we work with. So Melbourne Fringe Festival is an example. It's taking a while to load. There's also something called Doc Week. So if you make documentaries, you probably know that Doc Week in Adelaide is the biggest documentary festival in the Southern Hemisphere. And to get in is quite hard. But they started this thing with us where if you had a documentary on Pozible and met certain guidelines, you could be considered to be part of Doc Week and be invited to it. So we actually did a showcase at Doc Week this year with projects that came from us. We've also just signed, sorry, internet very slow. We've also just signed an agreement yesterday with MGM, so music albums that come through Pozible can get distributed through the network. So there are different things that we're trying to put into place. We see this as just one part of the puzzle, but it's about building the ecosystem. Yeah, so eventually if we can help people collaborate or find the help that they need, we would do that, but now it's just very informal. It's just about making connections to people. Okay, anyone else? You look like you have a question.
Do you already have Malaysian people?
We have a few Malaysian pipelines in draft, so that means they're working on it, but they're taking their time. Yeah. But there are a few fairly interesting ones coming up. So we're working with an you know Kaki Seni in KL, yeah. So we're working with them to see how we can collaborate in a bigger way to bring in more projects. Yeah. Advertise. We don't advertise in the. Oh, about your projects. You can, okay. You if you're taking your charity example, right? The orphanage. I think social media is the first step, but the next step would be to tell people who are, say, writing about that field. So if the charity was, for example, what I do in my spare time is I run an NGO that gives scholarships to girls in India. For stuff like that, I would reach out to people who would be interested in India/education/girls' education or women's rights. And then I would say, hey, we have this new project from Singapore, and this is what we're trying to do in India, and this is our crowdfunding campaign, and could you take a look at it and let me know what you think? And very often they would support it, either financially or by publicizing it for you. Yeah. We can give you some tips on how to do that, but in terms of actual promoting on our side, we would, if it was a cool project, we would tweet about it. We would post it on Facebook. We have quite a lot of followers. Maybe talk about it in the press if someone is asking for an interesting Malaysian project example. But other than that, we don't specifically offer a PR service because that's something that the project creator should be taking care of. But if they had any questions about that, they could always ask us. Okay, if there are no more questions, if you are keen to stay in touch and let us know about your ideas, just come up here and write your name and contact in this Excel sheet. Yeah? Okay, thanks guys. Thanks so much for coming.
Okay, thanks, Adrina. So later, you guys, I believe some of you, they are interested. They will fill up. Don't worry about that. I will be one of them. Okay. Seems like we have plenty of time. Just give you some updates of Sabah film industry. What happening recently? Okay. Maybe give you some. Next month we will talk about. What do you guys want to talk about next month?
New Year's off.
New Year's. Yeah, next month is after New Year. We have two choices. One, we will talk about equipment. Maybe we'll ask Canon support. They will bring their
C500.
all those high-tech camera come over and demonstrate to us. Either in that, or we can talk about KKIFF, Kota Kinabalu International Film Festival. I can invite Jude to come over and explain to you guys what is the highlight of the event. So maybe you guys give me feedback in Facebook. And now I give you some updates about Sabah film industry, what happening to Sabah. Recently, me and Noah, we went to visit a movie production site, and it's quite exciting. Why? They told us a new way to make a feature film. Like an independent filmmaker like us, if we write a long script, we prepare the whole proposal and approach them, normally for film production house, they will reject you. They won't look at your script. They say it's wasting time. I don't want to see your script. Okay? So the proper way to do it actually is, they want you to make a trailer. You make a good trailer, 1 to 3 minutes, and show them. If they are interested, then they will hope for a meeting. So I just want to encourage all the filmmakers here, keep your script at home. Don't waste the money to send it over, and start thinking about the trailer. What to do about your ultimate dreams. What kind of outcome you want to do for that. And don't send it to GSC or TGV, or what is the other production house? Metro Wealth. For Malay movie, don't need to send to Metro Wealth. They have their own production team. They won't bother about your film. For TGV, GSC, they have their own team as well. They need to, there is a limitation for movie to show in cinema. Means Malaysia is different. We are totally different compared to other countries. Like Singapore, out of 10 movies, maybe 5 is local movie. The other 5 is foreign country. For China, out of 10, 7 is their own local movies. But for Malaysia, it's totally different. Out of 10, 8 movies is foreign film. They only give us 2 quotas. One definitely is a Malay movie. The other one is either a Chinese movie or an Indian movie. So for us, it's very challenging. For filmmakers, for us to get into that industry is very challenging. So GSC and TGV, they're actually closing the door for the filmmaker to submit proposal, trailer, or anything. But the good news is now we have a new movie production house. This production house is called SKT. The core idea for this production house is they only accept local film. They want to help the local movie industry. So they are actually now planning to start up a new cinema. The cinema will be keep showing local film. The boss is rich lah, of course. So the boss don't care about earning money or what. They just want to help this industry. So for the filmmaker in Sabah, we try our best to make a good trailer and submit to them, and get money from them. That is what the message from the boss lah asked me to deliver to all the filmmaker in Sabah. Okay, now back to next one topic. What do you guys want? Huh? Special effect. Okay, February special effect. Who is the expert in Sabah? No way. Okay, we will put that in the waiting list. See whether any expert from Singapore can.
I know one guy.
You know what?
He
He's willing to
I don't know.
travel here. work in Lucasfilm,
No, he has his own company.
doing all sort of
They did
special
some
effects.
CGI for, you know that movie Boys to Men?
Yeah. Oh, okay, good.
Maybe
We put a project in Pozible, invite this guy to come up and help out this event, Filmcamp. This is a good idea. This is a good.
I think can ask.
Yeah, I think we'll be less than 1,000. Should be able to transfer him here for one night. Okay. Any sharing? Any updates? Come on, be open. Don't keep everything to yourself. We need to help each other. The market in Sabah is so small already. Huh? Yeah. I think not yet, right? In KL, right? UMS? Okay. I will get more detail of that. Maybe February updates, everyone. Okay. Yeah, you share the link in the page. What is any updates from your side? If no, I think not bad. Actually, we finished everything. Huh? I dance. You guys want to see it? The topic to talk about. Thank you.